You know, as you get older, your nutritional needs definitely change. So what you ate as a teenager or a young adult, probably totally inappropriate. But the question is, do you know what is appropriate and what's the best way to fortify your meals for maximum nutritional value now that you're older? Well, you know what? I sure don't, but we're going to find out today. So we're both going to learn something. So stay tuned. Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome to SCAN FYI. So yeah, today we're going to learn a little something about nutrition, and I'm going to learn a little something too, I'm sure, about that. So my guests today are Marissa Winters and Mary Brighton. They are both registered dietitians from Hackensack Meridian Health System. And I think we're going to learn something very valuable. So hello, ladies. Thanks for joining me.
Good morning.
Hi, thanks for having us today.
My pleasure. You know what? Why don't you each introduce yourselves, briefly, and just say something about you so we know a little more.
Well, I'm Marissa Winters, and I am one of the Integrative Registered Nutritionists here at Hackensack Meridian Integrative Health and Medicine. I'm part of what is known as the M&M team, which is Mary and Marissa.
I like it.
Yeah, it's actually
not to be confused with the candy.
No. We are so much better than the candy, so much more flexible and versatile. But that's what they call us in our department is the M&M team, because we do work quite well together. Our philosophy is that food is the primary source of nutrients, and we just have a great time educating people and having a wonderful time. We both have master's levels of nutrition training.
Okay.
Yes, and I am Mary Brighton. I am the other half of the M&M team. One thing that Marissa didn't tell you, though, that she has a brie addiction. Yeah. So Marissa is a wonderful inspiration for me, and I love working with her. And we do work well together to help our patients. Something different about me is that I did live overseas. So that's why when I say Marissa has a brie addiction, that's what we call the French brie cheese. So this is maybe one of the reasons why we work together, because, how can you not like to work with somebody who has an addiction to brie, right?
I think that would be impossible. You're right. You're right. So first I want to ask you, because integrative medicine, let's kind of explain a little bit. What do we mean by that? Whoever would like to answer.
Well, so integrative actually takes the best of conventional, traditional medical practices, and combines it with complementary therapies, but we are always very evidence-based. So, for example, we use acupuncture. There's a lot of acupuncture research that supports the benefits of acupuncture. We use Reiki. There is information on the benefits of Reiki therapy. We use a lot of mind-body therapies,
yes.
And we are versed in them because really, to our thinking, wellness and well-being is the whole package. You can't tease out separate things. It's kind of like teasing out separate organ systems. They all work together. And so if the health of one is compromised, then the health of all is compromised. And
well, I like that you would take a holistic approach even to what's good for your body to eat. And we do talk a lot about that at SCAN, about, it's all about your whole body. You're right. You can't just separate one little piece.
No, it all fits together, and including when patients come in, all of us practitioners here, we address things like sleep. Are you sleeping? How are you sleeping? How is your stress level? Are you moving? Do you get up every day out of bed with some joy and purpose? Because all of these things affect your health, your wellness, and how you digest your food, and how these all play a key. So it's not just let's talk about what you're eating, it's how you're eating and how is your lifestyle going. That's equally addressed in all our appointments.
So I do want to let our listeners know, you see that there's a number on top of your screen, and that number, as you're listening to Mary and Marissa, if you feel like you want to get some very personalized custom info, you can always call that number and you'll be able to reach out to them directly. All right, just wanted to say that right away. So let's talk about, you have a very different set of nutritional needs as you get older. And I think that not everyone really gets that or understands. What does that mean? What's different as we get older?
So probably one of the biggest changes that may happen as you get older is that I feel we have to make every bite count, meaning not only, what would I say? Not only should we look at what we're eating, but we have to really look at the quality of the food, because when we make things count, we can get maximum nutrition, even if, for example, our appetite is a little low one day, or, we may not be able to have the stamina one day if we're not feeling well, or not be able to, stand up and walk and cook and things. But also one of the biggest things of nutrients is the increased needs of protein, for older adults. So the protein requirements that you may read on the nutrition facts or on, let's say, for a regular adult, the protein needs do increase. There's some recent research on that. So trying to get every bite that counts, but also making sure that protein requirements are met in that food or in general for the day is quite important. Would you agree with me, Marissa?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Protein is a biggie. And a lot of times people start to lose their taste for animal proteins, and they forget that there's protein in a whole wide array of alternate foods. The other thing that I think is important is maintaining hydration, because
water.
Adequate hydration is a big thing, because one of the first signs of mild dehydration is fatigue. So a lot of times people are just tired all the time, and I'm going to bed and I'm getting enough sleep and I'm just tired. And often, not usually, but often it's because they're underhydrated. So making some awareness of including water, preferably non-caloric, non-sweetened beverages, can be very, very helpful in maintaining energy levels and just keeping all the body systems flowing.
So we do talk a lot about hydration, even at SCAN, and obviously lots of medical people come our way. And I'm going to say that hydration is really in the top 5 things that people talk about, that enough older adults have no realization that you got to keep drinking water, and not just in the summer when it's hot. This is a need all year long, correct?
All year long. Plus the body, even in young adults, the body is not very good at perceiving thirst. A lot of times it gets its wires crossed and perceives thirst as hunger. So, and other times it's just not giving you the heads up, like the blood is getting a little thick, hydration, you need to get some water into you. We just don't have really fine-tuned signals for hydration. So you can't wait until you feel thirsty. You have to start building in those. If you're a sipper, then build in those little sips throughout the day. If you're a gulper, that sometimes can be easier. Think about how you like to consume your fluids. You can always flavor your water with fruit or herbs or something like that. You can always put a little dollop of juice in it if you're not a water drinker. But prioritizing water and good quality foods and protein is really most of the battle.
Well, I want to go back to something that you were saying, that a lot of adults, as they get older, they lose their taste for animal protein. And so if you're no longer eating beef or chicken, let's say, so what are some other excellent sources of getting your protein? Maybe you're becoming more of a vegetarian as you get older. What should you be doing?
And I am a vegetarian. The only reason that I added back dairy is because of my love of brie and good cheese. But, when we're not talking about cheese wrapped in plastic, we're talking about really good quality. Right. And so, but using alternative sources for protein, things like legumes, right? So lentils and canned beans, those are excellent sources of protein. Nuts and seeds are also nice sources of protein. And if you have an issue with an actual whole nut, there's a ton of different nut butters that you could use that would kind of bypass that. Protein is actually found in pretty much every food except for fruit. So your vegetables have some protein in them, and your grains have some protein in them. And you can get adequate amounts of protein on a plant-focused diet. It's simply a matter of choosing foods that look the way they're found in nature, right? So we are very big on whole foods,
right,
that have minimal processing, because the more a food manufacturer has done to something, the more nutrients that you want have been compromised, and ones that you don't want have been put in, because we know that that can hijack your taste buds and hijack your taste preferences. So when you're having a steady diet of processed food, because it's easy and because it's fast, you start to lose your taste for real whole foods.
right.
And so then you're compromising that, what Mary said, that make every bite count.
And another thing that does sometimes happen is we do have some taste and smell changes
Right,
as we get older. Certain chronic diseases can be also related to decreasing in taste and smell. Not all practitioners are aware of that, that this happens, to older adults who may have diabetes or Alzheimer's or dementia. There can be some taste and smell changes. And one key mineral that is really important to hone in on the older population is zinc. So zinc is very important. It is a mineral that does help with, it is connected to taste and smell. So zinc isn't always easy to get in foods. It's in clams and oysters, but it's also in some whole grains. But you may want to entertain speaking to a dietitian or your general practitioner if you are not having a diet that's sufficient in zinc, on what you can do, because there are supplements out there. We don't push supplements. We feel like it's something that you have to talk to your doctor about, but zinc is definitely a key mineral to focus on in an older adult. One way I do like to say to get zinc can potentially be from something called nutritional yeast. So depending on where you buy that from, it can contain some zinc and selenium, a lot of B vitamins, and it's really good sprinkled on food. So here's where you kind of make your bite count, right? You can use a tablespoon a day, and it's not yeast, it's just called nutritional yeast.
I think that's part of the confusion, that it's not yeast, like that's making the bread rise.
Right.
No,
it's a different form of yeast.
I'm writing it down.
It's labeled as that. It's labeled as nutritional yeast.
Yeah. It's just these really delicious flakes. Great in soup, great on salad if you have salad, great on vegetables, great on pasta. And 1 tablespoon just gives a ton packed of B vitamins, B12 in particular, which is important, and some zinc and selenium. So
does it have a taste?
Like cheese almost.
It does. It has a cheesy taste. It has a, full disclosure, some people are put off by the smell of it. It has a very yeasty smell that can be quite strong, but you don't get that taste when you put it on foods like those moister foods, like you put it on mashed potatoes, you can put it in your grains or your soups, as Mary was saying, and it kind of dissolves, and it does give a little bit of a cheesy taste.
So I have even seen on some cooking videos on YouTube where they've talked about adding nutritional yeast, because it's a way of almost fooling your kids to give them extra, extra nutrition. But of course, now I'm realizing, okay, we need to fool ourselves. Okay, that's good. See, I wrote that down for myself too. Now, for people who say, I live by myself, I don't really feel like cooking, I don't feel like eating, but we need to be doing something. What are some easier ways for us to get that nutrition that we still need?
So, we get that a lot. That is a function of a lot of our population.
Yeah.
Younger as well as older. And one thing that we are very, very strong on is that eating is an act of self-care.
Mhm.
You are worth taking care of. And the way you feed yourself is part of that. And so it's quite easy, particularly if you have a changing life circumstance where now you're not cooking for the kids, the kids are off doing their thing or all those things. That does not negate your worthiness, right? And your willingness to take care of yourself. Okay, so that's one of the first things that we kind of stress. It's like, this isn't about not having somebody to take care of. You're
taking care of you is what
your priority as well as everybody else. And I guess we don't really get a whole lot of reinforcement for that. So as much as we love social eating, convivial eating, and that's something that Mary really speaks to brilliantly and a lot of it is because she lived overseas and it is a very different mindset. But first acknowledge that you're worth taking care of. And that means you're worth having something really delicious to eat. And the second thing that we talk a lot about is, it's not a heavy lift. You do not have to be in the kitchen for hours and hours and hours. There are a lot of convenience items that are perfectly fine to use. Things like frozen vegetables, canned beans, okay? But you want good quality foods. And you want foods that don't have a lot of additives and don't have a lot of processing to them, right? We're also really big on cook once, eat twice.
Yes.
Right? So
yes, totally agree with that.
Make extra portions, put them in the freezer. It's not like you have to eat the same stew for the next 4 nights, but it's available in perhaps a single serving size so that when you really don't feel like it, it's there and it's easy enough to microwave. We're just huge fans of also including those good healthy fats, like a little extra dollop of olive oil or chopping up some avocado, something like that, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. And then there are options for things like meal delivery kits, Meals on Wheels. There are services that can provide even one hot meal a day if you just need to supplement for breakfast or dinner, for example. And these are really important resources that are available in communities. The important thing is to, look at whether you have access to these healthy foods. And if you find that you have inability to have healthy foods in your budget, you may be eligible for some of these great programs that are out there, which we hope will be expanded, which is part of, part of the guidelines from the White House 2 weeks ago. They really want to expand some of these programs in America to help with food insecurity. So yes, there's some other ones that you can get delivered to the door, and we can give names of some. But I totally agree with Marissa that eating for self-care is important because you'll feel better. What happens is a little bit of a spiral downward, meaning if you're not eating, in general, most of the time, if you're not eating well, like you don't feel well, your appetite goes low, you're more tired, you have less spark. These are things that can be easily starting to go downward quickly.
Right.
And that's something just to kind of keep you grounded with eating for self-care. The other thing is we are social animals in the sense that, eating alone, it can be very lonely. And reaching out to friends and just being that initiator and just say, hey, once or twice a week, let's eat together. There is something
I love that idea.
Incredibly beautiful.
Yeah.
It's part of what we should be doing as humans. We should be eating together. And all you need, I'm sure that you reach out to somebody or a couple people be like, oh, thank you, and it's just eating together. And it can totally change that appetite that you're having. You leave the table with much more of a sense of community, belonging, sharing ideas, sharing conversation. So,
and probably satisfaction that you had a wonderful meal, because part of that is from sharing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also you were mentioning about cook once, eat twice, or even eat more than twice. And we are big proponents at SCAN. We talk about that. If you like to cook, why are you cooking one chicken leg? What's the point of that? I mean, oh, but it's too much food. Well, nobody's telling you you're eating it all tonight. Portion it out, put it in your freezer. And on those days or nights when you're not feeling well, or there you go, you have basically a meal, and it's real food that you cooked.
Right. Exactly. That's beautiful. You could be doing our job, right, Andrea?
Well, because
but yeah,
I'm one of those people that, I will cook a lot, and I portion it out. I enjoy it, and I also enjoy sharing it. But portioning it out is, I mean, it just, my mom did it. I learned that from my mother.
Yeah. It's beautiful. We have these beautiful refrigerators and freezers. I have to say, it's not the same in France or in Europe. They don't have as beautiful refrigerators like we do, right? No,
I have actually heard that. Yeah.
No, it's true. So we have these opportunities to make meals, put them in the freezer, take them out in the morning, defrost them, microwave them. Pretty much the nutrition is still there. It's just something to do. And one thing I would just say too is we're a big proponent of trying to do a little bit of pre-planning, meaning, if you're part of eating of self-care is to think, all right, what am I gonna eat this week? And just kind of pre-planning it out, and including maybe one restaurant that one night, or one takeout, one night with friends, like trying to really plan out what you're going to eat. It's part of moving nutrition as a priority. And
I think it also helps you when you go shopping. So you know what you need to buy. You're going to save money because you pre-planned to a point. So I think it's all logical.
And you're going to use what you buy.
Yeah.
Because the amount of food waste in this country is
too much.
It's crazy. It's something like 30% of the food that we purchase, we wind up throwing out, I think was one of the latest figures that I read. And that's a lot of times because, you go to the food store with all good intentions, and then you wind up with a vegetable drawer full of vegetables that are just slowly wilting away. Frozen vegetables are a great time saver, and there's nothing wrong with them. They're perfectly fine. Things like
before
chicks.
I don't remember which of you mentioned about the idea of bone broth for like some things that you can just create, or that you can add, that would just totally amp up the nutritional value. And is that one of those examples?
It is. Bone broth. We like bone broth a lot. You can buy very good commercial brands. It's also quite easy to make. You do want to use organic bones. If you have a slow cooker, you can go to the butcher, get some organic beef, chicken bones, whatever you prefer, throw them in the slow cooker with some water, maybe some herbs, and just let it go for 24 to 48 hours. There are a number of recipes available, and that's something that we do talk about. But if you wanted to get a commercial bone broth, you open up a bone broth, you've got extra protein, you've got extra collagen in it, it's got a lot of B vitamins, it's got a lot of things that are going to nourish those good bacteria that live in the gut. And then open up a bag of frozen vegetables, or cut up a potato, or throw in your leftover bits of meat or beans or pasta or rice. And you've got yourself a really nice hearty soup that is going to be filling as well as nourishing, because you're going to get that extra bang for your buck compared to just regular broth. And some people find bone broth quite strong, so you could always dilute it.
Right. And there's
that's another example of something that you would make a large portion, and you freeze it in smaller containers.
Sure.
And then as you need it, you have it.
One out. And you could take your bits of vegetables and freeze them and put them in your stock.
Yeah, that's
basically all your leftovers, right? You make a great pot of soup, and you already have the bone broth because you planned ahead.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, there's a couple other ones that we recommend for people who may be needing extra protein. Things like, eggs. Eggs are great. You can add eggs to almost a lot of things. Add eggs. I love bamming frozen peas. So I always feel like everyone should have frozen peas in your freezer. They don't clump together in general. So you can take frozen peas and like bam in a soup, bam here, bam there. A lot of protein. You can take things like nut butters and add them, peanut butter or almond butter, and you can put them in oatmeal as extra protein, healthy fats. Some people, if they've been sick or they have been losing weight, one other thing is this is just in general as a statement, is you can get like a very plant-based or protein powder that's plain. And some people, after they've been sick, maybe even something like COVID or a flu, sometimes you need to actually put in a little scoop of some plain protein powder in an applesauce or in a yogurt or something like that. This is something to check with your doctor or your dietitian, but it's a way of like adding protein in like pretty easy until you get your protein stores back to, where you're feeling well again.
So I feel like after listening to you ladies, that there are many relatively simple not relatively, absolutely simple ways of amping up your meals, even if you don't feel like cooking, to really increase the nutrition. It's not crazy stuff that costs a fortune. It's just pretty ordinary, commonsensical things. And I love that you said about, eating well is an act of self-care. And I think just like not eating well is the opposite, right?
Exactly. I mean, at some point you're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
You may as well invest in yourself. And there's research that is showing more and more that the quality of the food that you eat is also impacting not just your physical health, but your mental health.
Mental health.
So there is research that connects depression and anxiety and those types of conditions with a diet high in processed foods, among other things. It's certainly not the end all and be all, but why wouldn't you want to feel as good as you can feel if it's a matter of choosing something like, I'll have a snack of a banana instead of maybe my nightly ice cream? And by the way, if you slice up that banana and freeze it, it's really good. You pull it out and eat it frozen. There's a lot of recipes online for nice cream and apostrophe ICE. We're kind of getting out of ice cream season now, but are we ever really out of ice cream season?
Oh, we are never really out of ice cream season.
So you have some frozen banana slices. If you want, you can throw them in a food processor or a decent blender, and they will whiz up into a very creamy texture. There's a lot of different ways you can change the flavor up a little bit, put some cocoa powder in, things like that. And it's really good. It's really, really good. And you're giving yourself some nice nutrients versus,
Junk.
something that is not going to serve you. Exactly. So and maybe you don't want to do that every night. Maybe some nights you just really want that ice cream, and that's fine, because we're not purists here. We are very much realistic, and we're big on 80-20. And as Mary always says, don't let perfection be the enemy of good. Anything that you do is going to move you forward.
Deprivation is just, it doesn't work. And there's really, what's the point, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, you're just grumpy and hungry instead of hungry.
Yeah. You might, if you really want the ice cream, so have the ice cream. Yeah.
Right.
And nutrition is not graded day by day in general.
There you go.
It's graded week.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, ladies, I really appreciate all this great information. And again, the phone number is right on the screen, 732-263-7999. If you want to reach out to the M&M team, they are located at the Hope Tower in Neptune. And that way you can get some very customized information that's just right for you. Okay. So ladies, thank you for being with me today, Mary and Marissa.
Thank you for having us.
My pleasure, really. Remember out there, if it's important to you, it's important to us. I'm Andrea Tarr, and we'll see you next time on SCAN FYI. Bye, everyone. Bye, ladies.
Bye.